Does your child freak out over loud noises? Do they refuse to wear clothes like they're on fire? Do they act wild and crash into everything? This isn't bad behavior. These are red flags for sensory processing disorder. Here are 5 key signs to watch out for and how to help your child. I'm Lisa, a child behavior expert and a parent coach. I have over a decade of experience as a pediatric occupational therapist. I've worked with hundreds of families who struggled with their child's sensory challenges, and it was impacting their day-to-day lives. I know how overwhelming it can be when your child's reactions seem extreme and also unpredictable. But once you start to understand how their brains are processing sensory input, all of this is going to start making sense for you. So you might have noticed that your child is always the sensitive one. They are picky about the clothes that they wear. They're picky about the foods that they eat. Noises are too loud for them. Everything in their environment just seems to bother them. They're your difficult child, they're just more stubborn, and you just cannot seem to figure them out. Parents I've worked with had kids who were very sensitive to different stimuli, and it was causing their kids so much anxiety, making them want to avoid doing group outings, going to different parties, birthday parties, Christmas parties, and it was just causing so much disappointment and frustration for these families. Other families I've worked with had the complete opposite issue with their child. Their child struggled to notice things in their environment. They could have food smeared all over their face and their kids wouldn't even notice it. Or they'd be bumping into things, dropping things, acting really clumsy, and these kids wouldn't even be fazed. These kids would face a lot of social interaction issues because they didn't know how to gauge personal space. They often would get too close with their peers and it would bother them. These kids would tell them that, oh, you're so annoying, and a lot of them would face a lot of bullying because of their sensory behaviors. If you're noticing these sensory challenges within your child, I know how concerning it can feel because it does impact your child from an emotional state. Your child does notice that things bother them, that it's hard for them to participate in daily activities. This starts to impact their mental health, their self-esteem, and confidence. They start to feel more isolated from their peers because of these sensitivities, and they can also feel like something is wrong with them because they notice other kids don't have this problem. The good news is there are solutions to sensory challenges. Through my private coaching, I can provide you with the right tools and strategies to support your child's sensory needs. This is going to help them to participate in activities that make them feel anxious, that make them feel like they want to avoid things. It's also going to give them the tools and strategies to help them feel more regulated and calm when they are feeling overwhelmed. And you are going to finally have the tools and the strategies that you've been looking for to help you feel confident in knowing what you need to do to help support your child when they are experiencing all of these sensory challenges. I have helped over 100 families who are struggling with their child's sensory challenges by giving them the right sensory diet, the right sensory tools and strategies, and have given parents a different approach to parenting when you have a child with SPD. These children went on feeling way more confident in their own skin. They were able to participate in school activities and home activities. These kids also learned to be more aware of their bodies in space so that they weren't bumping into other kids, crashing into things. And this helped them to socialize so much better with the other kids. So if you're ready to make sense of these sensory challenges that you're facing, you can check out everything in the description box below. Before we get into the 5 signs of sensory processing disorder, or SPD, remember to like and subscribe to my channel. All right, so let's get into the 5 signs. The first one is over-responsiveness or avoidant behaviors. Children who are over-responsive to sensory input often feel very sensitive. So if there are loud noises in their environment, there's bright lights, or there's certain textures of their clothes, the tags on their clothes, these types of things really bother them. It gets to a point where it feels extreme and it becomes problematic in every little daily thing that your child is going through. So it could be just teeth brushing or just trying to get out the door, get ready for school. It could be being at school and all the lights and sounds feels very overwhelming to them. So by the time they get home, they have huge meltdowns because their bodies are feeling so overwhelmed. Number 2 is under-responsiveness or low awareness to sensory input. So these kids seem to not register sensory input like other people. They seem more disconnected and more sluggish in their movements. They don't seem to react to pain. If something hit them, it seems like nothing happened. If there was an extreme temperature, it doesn't seem to bother them. So your kid might be one where they can go out in a winter storm wearing shorts and it's perfectly fine for them. They might also miss social cues. So if someone is calling their name from across the room, it's like they don't even notice that they're being called. The third is sensory seeking, where they crave sensory input. So your child might be actively seeking out movement. They're jumping, crashing, rolling on the floor. They just need to always be moving. Maybe it's during homework time. You're noticing that they're always fidgeting. They're always getting up from their desk. You're yelling at them, telling them to sit down, focus, do your homework. But then the next minute they're off into the other room getting something. Then they come back to their desk and they just kind of seem to be everywhere. Your kid might also be chewing on different things. They're chewing on their clothes. They're chewing on their bottles. They're chewing on their fingernails. It seems like they're always needing something in their mouth. And they might also be the type of kid that's always seeking like extreme sports. They love to just climb up really high. They like activities that move them really fast and they get to spin in circles all the time. These movements and strong sensations actually help them to feel regulated. Number 4 is dyspraxia, which is poor motor planning and coordination. So dyspraxia affects your child's ability to execute different movements. And so they are going to look like they are very clumsy. They're dropping things all the time, bumping into stuff all the time. They just can't seem to coordinate their movements smoothly, and they're usually not good at sports. They also seem to be really slow to respond to their environment. So if they're, let's say, moving around your kitchen, they're kind of like bumping into things, bumping into walls. They're not noticing what's going on in their environment. The door just opened and they just like turn around and smash their face into it. And you're just wondering like, what is going on with my kid? Like, they just seem so clumsy. They also often have difficulties with fine motor skills. So things like holding a pencil and writing, or pouring something into a cup, things that require the small movements of the hand, it's very difficult for them. And so they might require more assistance from you, like getting their buttons buttoned up, zipping up their coat. Like, it's really just difficult for them to do. Now, remember, when I'm telling you this example, these are examples for kids that are older, because if your kid is still 4 or 5, that is completely normal because fine motor skills develop over time, and that is developmentally appropriate that your kids are still kind of clumsy with their fingers trying to figure it out. I'm talking here about a kid who is in middle school and they're like 10, 11, 12, where they're still very clumsy and showing these behaviors. These are more signs of the dyspraxia that I'm describing right now. And number 5 is sensory discrimination issues. So your child struggles with interpreting the sensory input that they're receiving. So these kids struggle with interpreting things like where the sound might be coming from. So they might be thinking that a sound is coming from over here, but it's really a noise that's coming in this direction. It could also be textures. They struggle with understanding the type of texture that they're feeling. They might be misjudging certain distance. So if they think that the garbage can is over there and they're trying to throw a piece of trash in there, they completely miss it because their judgment is off. They also confuse letters and numbers that look quite similar. So letters like B's and D's, they often get reversed when they're writing. Or if they're drawing an S or a Z, it's written backwards. That's an example of a child who is struggling with sensory discrimination. So if you're recognizing that these are signs in your child right now, I know that it can feel very overwhelming. It can feel frustrating. You can feel very lost in all of this. But I want to get into some solutions for you to help you figure out how to navigate this. So yes, your child might be struggling with this now, but this does not dictate how they're going to be able to navigate these challenges in the future. The most important thing is that you are finding the answers you need for your child to support their sensory needs and start implementing the right strategies and tools today so that they can cope with these challenges. Solution number 1 is using a sensory diet. This is a set of very specific sensory activities that are going to support your child's needs. This can look like movement breaks, having a lot of deep pressure and heavy work type of activities, lots of swinging on a hammock. Now, this sensory diet needs to be specific to your child's sensory needs. And so getting the right guidance on how to set this up is very important. This is something that I can offer support with. If you want a little bit more information, I also have a YouTube video all about sensory diets that you can check out. I'll link that in the description box. Solution number 2 is adjust daily routines. So you can offer sensory-friendly clothing if your child is very sensitive to the tags or how tight something is, or if something is too baggy and loose. You need to really listen in on how your child likes their clothing and what kind of clothing arrangement feels the most comfortable to them and accommodate to that. You can also use visual schedules and visual boards to help them with transitions. A lot of our kids who have sensory challenges or SPD, they struggle with transitions because it's very hard for them to shift their focus from one activity to the next, especially when they're feeling overwhelmed from the sensory input. So having a visual schedule to help them. For instance, if morning routines are hard because your child is very sensitive to all the different tasks involved, giving them structure and something to follow can really help them move from one point to the next. Solution 3 is providing sensory tools. So this can come in the form of using jewelry, which is chewable jewelry made of food grade silicone. And for our kids who really crave that sensory input, they love to chew on things, they love to chew on their clothes, they love to chew on inedible objects. Obviously, that has some hygienic issues there. It can also pose some health and safety risks if they chew something and swallow it. So we want to give them a safer alternative using something like a jewelry. It just looks like different pendants that come on a string, and you can find different types of styles to it. There are some that look like Legos or different shapes. You can find one that is suitable to your child's interest and give that to them so they can chew on that rather than the other objects that they have. You can also give your child fidget tools if you're finding that they're constantly needing to touch things. You can give them weighted blankets if you notice that their bodies are always on the move and they're struggling to sit still. Putting that deep pressure and weighted blanket on them can help them to feel more grounded and focused. The next solution is creating the right environment for your child with sensory needs. So ensuring that you have designated places around your house where your child can retreat to if they need a place to feel more calm and more regulated. Setting up like a calming corner, for instance. So if your child comes home after school, you notice that they are very dysregulated, they just had a very big day, they feel overwhelmed from all that sensory input, and they need a place to just kind of quiet down, calm their nervous systems, feel more grounded. Set up a corner in your house where you have pillows, you have a weighted blanket, you can dim down the lights, have some little twinkle lights set up, and give them either noise canceling headphone or even just like a MP3 player, I don't know, something that plays music that they can plug in and just listen to some very calming music. Now, the best kind of music is using more like nature-based music, like waterfall sound, birds chirping, white noise. Those are things that can help to really regulate their nervous system. Now, if you're realizing your child is showing signs of SPD that I mentioned, I want to assure you that there is nothing wrong with your child. Your child is wired the way they are. They were born this way and it's beautiful. Their brains are beautiful. It's just that they process the world in a different way. And rather than thinking that we need to change them and try to make them, process things like normal people, it's not about changing who they are, because this is their brain wiring. Rather, it's about finding the right supports and tools to help them function in day-to-day life. And I know I just gave you a lot of solutions just now, but the truth is you do have to piece all of these solutions to make it work for your child. And in order to do this, you have to understand your child's sensory processing profile, and also what are all the different tools that are out there, and how is your home configured that's going to make everything flow properly. So if you're feeling overwhelmed right now in this process, I want to assure you, you are not alone. I am here to give you that support. I have over a decade of experience working as an OT. I've worked with hundreds of families who have had kids with sensory processing disorders or just sensory processing challenges who needed my support, and I was able to give them the right sensory diet and the tools and strategies give parents the right insight on how to approach their parenting. And we've seen such amazing results from these kids. So if you're ready to find the right solution for your child, you can find all the information about my private coaching in the description box. I hope you found this video helpful and informative for you. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel and comment in the comment section if you notice any of these 5 signs in your child. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.